Let's bring in a supporter of the Tea Party, Congressman David Schweikert. He's a first-term Republican from the state of Arizona. He joins us from Phoenix this morning. Congressman, welcome to In Business. What's your response to that claim of insanity?
Well, you know, the devil's always in the details, and you start to realize how much of this starts becoming literally the oracle doubling down on his political choices. How much of this rhetoric is about bolstering President Obama compared to the reality of the math. Because if you look at many of the articles that have come out since his statements, the math doesn't jive with those types of statements.
What are you talking about with the math? I know you said in the past that Washington doesn't have a revenue problem, it has a spending problem. But
Very much so.
Buffett says, hey, I'm willing to pay up more. Why would you not want more?
Let's actually walk through the mechanics here. The top 10% of income earners represent 70% of the personal income tax revenue in the federal government. You start to mesh that with some of the statements Warren Buffett has said. The math doesn't add up. And I understand it's great political rhetoric. We've already seen the president use it in some of his statements. And my great fear, like your previous guest was just saying, are we seeing someone that many of us hold, in high esteem, but his brand now is at risk because the reality of tax policy and the math that where the top income earners are paying taxes and literally half of our population is not paying income taxes, we got a problem where the stories aren't meshing.
Well, give me a sense of the Tea Party brand, or at least a very conservative Republican brand there that has been in opposition to revenue increases like Buffett suggests. Some say even today's consumer confidence number that showed such a sharp contraction in August had something to do with the lack of direction out of Washington. Do you take some responsibility for that?
Yeah, Margaret, I'm actually going to do this in two parts. First, I lay today's consumer confidences right at the door of the administration. How many times did we see the Treasury Secretary walk up to a microphone and use the word default? The United States is going to default on its bonds. Well, that was absurd. We were never going to default on our bonds. But yet, the politics were more important to this White House than telling the financial truth. The financial truth was actually much more interesting. What do you do with the 1/3 of federal spending it has survived solely on borrowing?
Right.
And if we wanted to have a more honest debate, let's reach back, let's grab the president's own deficit commission and their tax policy suggestions of a fairer, flatter, broader tax system where we lower marginal rates, but we get rid of a lot of these lobbyist-created special carve-outs in the tax code, because we know that's an optimal tax system and will generate jobs.
Well, let me ask you.
We need the economic growth.
Let me ask you, are you confident that the super committee will now be able to come up with a deficit reduction plan that you can support so that we avoid another kind of last-minute showdown?
Well, I'm not. I'm hopeful. But understand, when we get back to Washington next week, we're 3 weeks away from having to do a budget.
Right. As
you know, the House passed a budget months and months ago. And yet we still have not seen the Senate pass anything out, let alone hold proper hearings. How do we, in our political world, get the Senate to step up, act like adults, and do their job so we can stop running this country on continuing resolutions? Because my fear is we get back and 3 weeks of fussing over a continuing resolution, then we're back into the debate over the documents that come out of the super committee.
Well, and then you've also got this new debate about trying to offset disaster relief. I mean, you've got Eric Cantor is calling for that as well. Aren't you afraid of some political heat on that issue, on trying to find offsets for helping people in disaster zones?
No, what Leader Cantor made it very clear. We will step up and help our brothers and sisters out there in need. In a $3+ trillion federal budget, I promise you, we'll find some offsets and we'll find them fairly simply. But you have the political culture of the left is, let's just borrow the money, and one day in the future we'll have an honest discussion about that borrowing.
Yeah.
We're trying to tell the world and the business markets that we're trying to turn off the spigot of debt. And this will be a good symbol. We'll get the money to help our disaster victims, and yet it will be, I actually believe, somewhat easy to find some offsets out there that hopefully we can all embrace.
Congressman, I would love to talk to you again about just that very issue, but I've got to leave it there for the moment. Thanks for your time.